So I have worked in this building for almost 7 years. The building is 3 stories and also has a basement and is well over 100 years old. We have had many paranormal investigators and psychics/mediums who have come to check out the property on many occasions. The one incident that has stuck with me the most happened a few years ago while I was working. The salon was in the middle of a big remodel in which we had torn down some walls to open it up a bit and gotten rid of what had been a private room used for massages. I had sat my client down in my chair in the other side of the room and then excused myself to grab some supplies from the back. On my way over, I passed this newly opened up room that was empty, except for a few storage boxes. And out of the corner of my eye, I saw a figure. I turned to look and saw a young girl, maybe 7 or 8 years old. She was wearing a light-colored dress that was dirty looking, and she had long brown hair. She looked real, but out of place. I realized there were no children in the salon, and did a double take, and then she was gone. I was shaken up, but tried to pretend nothing happened and went back to take care of my client. After I finished the service, I went outside to smoke a cigarette, and was sitting alone wondering what the hell I had just seen, trying to make sense of the girl in my head, and one of my coworkers came walking up the sidewalk ready to start her shift. She came to talk to me, and I was visibly upset. I said, "If I tell you about something I saw that sounds crazy, will you promise not to think that I'm crazy?" Without missing a beat, she said, "You saw her, didn't you?" I said, "What?" And then she said, "The little girl in the back room with the white dress, with the dark hair, just standing there. I saw her yesterday." I hadn't mentioned anything, but she described exactly what I saw in the exact same location. I still can't make sense of it to this day. I have so many other stories I can share about my salon, different instances with the same spirit, and other ones if anyone would be interested to hear them. There's 7 years worth of weird stuff happening. OP also left a comment in addition to their post. More on the creepy side, though, is that the children come in and are really drawn to our basement. Kids that have never been inside the building before have pointed to the door and asked if they could go downstairs to play. Now, unless you know this door leads to the basement, you would never guess that's what it was. It looks like every other door in the place. Kids often mention the boy downstairs. My own son, around 4 at the time, was visiting me at work one day with my boyfriend and went into our bathroom. My boyfriend went with him, as he wasn't great at going to the bathroom by himself yet. Our bathroom has tons of pictures from magazines and posters all over the wall, and my son, from the toilet, said, "Why is that girl sad?" My boyfriend, thinking he meant the picture on the wall, shrugged it off. Then my son said, "Why is she crying?" He turns around to look where he's looking and sees a dark figure right behind him in the room, grabs him off the toilet, and then runs screaming out of the bathroom. I was outside the room and asked what had happened, and my son just continued to talk about the sad girl in the bathroom. I've heard a lot of the ghost stories that you've read, and was thinking that my mother's stories would fit in well with your channel. Honestly, I've never had much of ways in paranormal experiences, but my mother says that she's pretty much been followed by spirits her entire life. I can't personally prove that any of this has happened, so do with it what you will. When my mom was young, she, her parents, and 3 brothers all lived in a decent-sized 2-story house in the northeastern United States. The house was, supposedly, around a century old, and was actually owned by her grandparents, so my great-grandparents. Unfortunately, I don't know who owned it before that, or what all happened there before my family took over the house, so maybe there is a history that could help explain some of this. Either way, when my mom was a little girl, she would always play in her room and have conversations with someone named Emma. My grandpa actually told me about this one. He said that she was in her room playing one day and just babbling on, and then when my grandpa went to ask who she was talking to, she kept saying it was her friend Emma. Later that day, he decided he wanted to ask her who Emma was, just to kind of get a feel for the imaginary friend my mom had made up. She told him that Emma was an older girl that slept in her bed with her. This was a bit confusing to my grandpa. My mom had no sisters, and there weren't any older girls or anything that came to the house. So he prodded her for more information. She told him that Emma was a beautiful young girl that had bright blue eyes and red hair, and that she couldn't ever leave the house. When he asked her why she couldn't leave the house, she told him that she had had an accident in the house and that she had died, so she was stuck there. The whole time that my mom was telling my grandpa about her, she seemed happy to tell the story. She wasn't scared of Emma at all, so my grandpa ended up letting it go. There was another story that my grandpa would always tell me about when my mom was around 5, but this one he actually experienced personally. He said he was in the garage fixing some machine that they had on their property, and my mom was in the room with him, just messing around with his tools and doing whatever she felt like. He said that out of nowhere, my mom screams, "No, I don't like you." My grandpa said that he leaned over and asked my mom why she didn't like him. She said, "No, not you, Daddy, him," and pointed up into the storage area of the garage. My grandpa swore that when he turned to look, he saw something move. It looked like a shadow, but in the shape of a person. My grandpa was never really superstitious and was super religious, so I don't know if he believed in ghosts, and he said he wasn't sure if this was a ghost, but there was definitely something there that he could physically see. My mom also says that she constantly saw people in the corners of the house or in the basement and garage. She said that when she was older, one time she went to the laundry room of the house to wash her clothes, and when she went to leave, the door slammed shut and locked. No matter what she did, the door would not open. What's weirder is that the lock was on the inside of the laundry room because it was a repurposed restroom, so she should have been able to unlock the door without issues. She said that even though she turned the lock to undo it, the knob and door just simply would not budge. A few minutes later, my grandma went to the laundry room to get something, and it opened without issue. My mom says that during the whole time she was stuck in the room, she felt a dark and painful pressure come over her. She said that she was bawling her eyes out the entire time and smacking the door as hard as she could. Then when my grandma opened the door, the entire feeling of the room changed. My grandma was surprised to find my mom in the room and claimed that she didn't even hear her crying or smacking the door at all. She said it was completely silent on the outside. Last story for this submission, but I may have more from her in the near future. A few years after I was born, my uncle had been in a major accident at work. They called my grandpa to tell him to go to the hospital, and my mom had been at their house at the time, so she went with him. On the way to the hospital, my grandma was driving fast and acting fairly erratic on the road because he was panicking. This was definitely unsafe, especially since my mom and infant me were in the back seat. My mom says that about halfway to the hospital, my uncle randomly appeared in the passenger seat. He was staring at my grandpa and smiling with tears in his eyes, and then looked back at my mom. He told her, "Tell him to slow down. He doesn't need to hurry anymore." That was the moment that she had realized he didn't make it, and she told my grandpa to slow down. My grandpa argued a bit at first, but when she said, "Bobby said you can slow down because it won't matter," it occurred to him what she was saying. My grandpa says that he never saw anyone in the seat, but he had a feeling deep down that she was telling the truth and that my uncle had come to her to tell him to slow down and wanted to make sure they were safe before he went over to the other side. These are some of the more interesting stories I've been told. I know my mom has a lot more, and I may send more your way in the future. My mom has experienced a lot from the time she was young and has told me a lot of stories. These were just some of my favorites. So when I was in 4th grade, there was a rumor that the school that I went to was built over a graveyard. At the time, my mother and my friends' mothers both worked at the school, so we could roam the school freely after school. We decided that one day after class, we'd go to all the haunted places in the school. The places being 2 classrooms, the girls' bathroom in the cafeteria, and the playground. We didn't tell our mothers about it, we just kind of went with it. First, we went to the bathroom in the cafeteria. So me, being the only girl, I had to go in. Girls had reported hearing crying and seeing bloody handprints on the sink. As soon as I walked in, I heard the crying. It freaked me out, of course. Every time I checked the stall, I heard the crying, and nothing was there. I saw a bloody handprint, freaked out, and ran out of the bathroom. My one friend, who I'll call S, asked me what I saw, and I told them everything. They were equally just as freaked out. We really couldn't go into the 2 classrooms since the teachers in them wouldn't let us in. So we went to the playground, and behold, a swing was swinging by itself. We freaked out and ran back inside. So much for being brave. We told our moms everything about it, and they panicked with us. That's all for my story. I know it's kind of short, but it's my first post. Thanks for reading. My grandfather died many years ago now, and although he was a hard man cut from the leather of the Great Depression, he always liked having me around. He died my sophomore year. I basically shut down for a while. Weird things started to happen every now and then, but I always found some way to brush it off or just debunk it. I was finishing up my last final for me to graduate from high school when my grandma got a call on the phone from the same number under my grandfather's name. She answered it, only to static, and then a hang-up click. She received the call at the exact moment that I handed in my tests. I've tried for years to figure it out. If anyone has any ideas how a landline can call itself without another phone connected to that same number, please let me know. So around a year after my family moved into the house we currently live in, I started hearing tapping, which escalated into knocking at my window. The thing is, I slept on the 2nd story of the house. And after I heard knocking 3 times in a row like it was a person knocking, I'd had enough. So I moved downstairs and have been sleeping downstairs since then, and it is significantly less often that I hear creepy noises coming from the window. The only problem is that since then my older sister, her boyfriend, and her kids who live upstairs have started hearing it too. The same knocking and tapping that was going on, except now it started happening during the day as well, plus a few incidents that everyone has heard. For example, one time we were having a family movie night, and there was a loud thud that came out of nowhere. People heard it coming from different directions. That's everything that has happened so far with whatever is going on in our house. I've lived at my address now for nearly 4 years. The thing I can remember is within, I would say, 3 months, I woke up mid-sleep and looking at the end of my bed, I seen what I could only describe as an old woman with gray, scraggy hair just hovering at the end of the bed. I fell back to sleep shortly thereafter. Another significant thing was we had a cat that had been hissing overnight, and the next day while upstairs, I hear a cat meowing in the loft. I think this is ridiculous, as there's no way the cat could possibly have gotten in the loft as the hatch had been closed, and you need ladders to get up there anyway, but I carried on hearing it, so I grabbed the ladders and had a look. I got a very dark feeling from the loft, but looked anyway, and no sign of the cat, and the meowing had stopped. The cat turned up outside the door the next morning, proving that it definitely wasn't up there. About 2 years since moving in, we are upstairs and I go down to get a drink, walking down the stairs and through the hall to the door to get to the kitchen. As I reach the door, I hit a wall of smell. It was a very nice smell, like expensive aftershave. It smelled nothing like anything I own. It's as if it just appeared in the hallway. I've never smelt it before or since, and all the doors were locked and no one had been in the house that day. In between all these happenings, I regularly see figures passing doorways or small cat-dog type shapes moving around corners, or doors in the corner of my eye. Lastly, something that both me and my toddler daughter both experienced. My wife had left the house, and I was sat watching TV with my daughter. After a while, we both heard the front door open and shut, to which my daughter looked at me with a smile and said, "Mommy." We both then heard footsteps up to the stairs, so we assumed my wife had gone to the bathroom. 15 to 20 minutes pass, and I started to think what she was doing, so I go upstairs, shouting at her to see if she was okay. I got no reply. I'm thinking she's having a laugh, so I knock on the bathroom door again to no answer. I open the door to an empty bathroom. At this point, I'm a bit mystified, so I try all the bedrooms, all empty, and look in the front to see no car. I message my wife, and she tells me she's on her way home and hasn't been back to the house since she left. Both me and my daughter heard the door and the footsteps go up, but not down. I just thought I would share my experiences, if anyone has experienced anything similar. My auntie and uncle were both ill. We thought my auntie would recover, but we knew the end was in sight for my uncle. He passed away at 6 a.m. in the morning, and my auntie shortly followed at 11 p.m. on that same night. They left behind 2 dogs, so me and my sister stayed over at the house to make sure the dogs were looked after until we could get everything sorted out. It was a massive shock for everyone involved. During the week or so we stayed there, a number of things happened that showed us they were in fact still in the house. I know people might think this is too soon, but trust me, somebody was still in that house. It started with me and my sister going through some of my auntie's cupboards and finding lots of things to do some baking. My granddad had said that she wouldn't want the stuff to go to waste and to use the food up and whatever else was left in the house. Although this felt very strange, he did have a point, and we were there for the week anyways. So as we were looking through the cupboard, I said to my sister, perhaps we should do some baking. As I said this, the telly turned on. What was on the telly? An advert for Macmillan Cancer Support. It was the advert that said to bake a cake for cancer support and to have a coffee and cake day to raise money. I immediately laughed and said, "Yep, looks like Sharon wants us to bake a cake." Both my auntie and uncle had cancer, so this seemed very fitting. We went and sat down in front of the TV, and were flicking through the channels, when I heard a massive bang. I stood up and go into the kitchen, and one of Sharon's cookbooks is open on the kitchen counter. It was open on a page that had a recipe to make a certain cake, so we decided that she definitely wanted us to do some baking. For the following week we stayed there, and it honestly was one of the weirdest experiences in my life. The gas fire turned itself on randomly, the dogs would bark at the dark, we heard banging upstairs. The one thing that sticks in my memory is sitting watching TV and hearing a sort of scraping or clanking sound in the cupboard. It sounded like there might have been a mouse in there. I opened the cupboard, and clear as day I could see a glass on its side rocking back and forth. I was shocked, but picked up the glass and put it right, thinking the vibration from something might have knocked it over. But then it happened again a few seconds later. it wasn't just rocking, it was going really fast and quick, like somebody was moving it. After this, not a lot really happened, but we never really slept properly there, and it was all very strange. The dogs were very aware of something in that house. They didn't seem scared, so I'd like to think it was my auntie and uncle. The dogs got rehomed to somewhere in Cornwall with one of my auntie's friends, and they lived a happy life. I often see clairvoyants, and never once have my auntie and uncle come through. I like to think they are happy and at peace together, possibly in Cornwall with their dog, eating cake and drinking tea. Howdy, hey, hi, my lovely listeners. I hope you're all having a fantastic day, and I hope that you enjoyed this collection of 7 horrifying, haunting stories. I love reading ghost stories. I hope you enjoyed listening to them, because I love reading them. Thank you to the person who submitted the second story. They did not include a name to attribute to it, which I understand. They want to remain anonymous, and that's fine. I just want to say thank you to that person who did submit it. And if you have a ghost story you would like me to read on my channel, feel free to click the link down in the description where you can submit a story to me if you have one that you want me to read. That all said, friends, if you enjoyed this content and would like more content like this, please consider joining the Nevermore. The Nevermore is a collective of my Patreon, my Ko-fi, my subreddit, Twitter, Facebook, other things that I can't remember right now. And all you have to do to join the Nevermore is click on that subscribe button, and then click the bell next to it, and select all. Doing so makes you part of the Nevermore. Technically, parts of the Nevermore are accessible without joining said Nevermore, but it's more fun to be part of the collective, and just be a part of something bigger than yourself and help a small channel like mine grow larger. The Nevermore can take over if you just keep subscribing. Not if you've already subscribed. You can only subscribe once, technically. Or if you have multiple accounts, you could technically subscribe multiple times. But, only subscribe if you enjoy my content, and if you want to boost it like that, I guess go for it, but I'm not gonna stop you. I'm also not gonna encourage that kind of behavior. You can also consider sharing my videos with people that you think may enjoy them, because I know a lot of people out there love narrators like Let's Read, Your Maker, and so forth, so if you know someone who listens to those people, maybe throw my name in the hat, just write my name on a card, and then literally throw that card at them, so they can look at it and be like, who the hell is As the Raven Dreams? What does this even mean? What are you talking about, Mark? I hope you all have a fantastic day, and a fantastic rest of your week. I will see you all in the next video, but until then, friends, sleep well.